We all know what happens in the Hikikomori route of OMORI, where Sunny isolates himself the whole game, spending most of his time dreaming his life away in headspace, meaning the one thing this route lacks is all of Sunny's real world friends, which begs the question, what happens to all of them when Sunny decides to isolate before he moves away? First, let's start off with the man we always start off with, Kel. After the truth and once he learns Sunny's moving away, he tries to get in contact with Sunny for months, as we heard from Sunny's mom. And in the Sunny route, Sunny obviously opens the door and bam, the story unfolds from there. But here, however, Kel would never get to see that door open, and perhaps never hear from his old friend again. I'd imagine that Kel would feel pretty bad about losing Sunny as a friend, especially after trying to spend time with him only to be denied for so long. He would most likely be sad for quite a while. I mean, they were friends for years and now any chance of them ever coming in contact with him has pretty much disappeared, or at the very least been decreased severely. But as we've seen before, Kel is pretty good at bouncing back from harsh times, like when they all lost Marie. So I think eventually he would find a way to cope with this pain and move on from this. Or he might just spam Sunny's phone over and over until he finally gets a hold of him. Either way, I think in the end Kel would be pretty alright. He's just built different mentally and therefore can handle stuff pretty well. To put it simply, it's Kel. Up next, we'll do Kel's brother, Hiro. So, when Marie passed, Hiro took it pretty hard to the point where he became severely depressed and even lashed out on his own brother. So, if he loses Sunny, one of the few things he has left of Marie, I imagine it would be pretty hard for him too. It wouldn't be as harsh as with Marie since Sunny doesn't die unless that ending happens, but still, losing a lifelong friend, especially one that's a sibling of your other close friend slash potential lover, would for sure hurt quite a bit. But at this point, it's safe to say Hiro has been through the worst of his depression, as we know he's now going to college and doing all kinds of stuff. He does indeed have his moments like we saw in the Sunny route, but overall he's doing better than before. I think Hiro, like Kel, would be able to move on from this and just continue on with his life. I think we have to account for the fact that it's been 4 years since they've seen each other, so really there wouldn't really be much of an impact on their daily lives. There would be the pain of losing their longtime friend like I said before, but I feel that both brothers would be able to overcome it after a while. After all, they have each other and their parents to help and support them. With that being said, it's also possible for Hiro to fall back into his depressive state for many reasons. Number one, he would never learn the truth and continue to blame himself for Marie's suicide. And number two, if something does happen to Sunny, he may feel guilty for never being there for him, especially since he's Marie's little brother. In this case, things would be a little harder, but I think he would hopefully overcome it like he did after Marie's death. But you know what? I like to stay positive, so let's just stay with the first theory and say he would overcome it quite easily. Now we move on to the much more complicated characters, which is Aubrey and Basil. So I'm going to go ahead and start with Aubrey. Aubrey, in my opinion, is a bit more unpredictable. As we saw in the game, Aubrey ended up turning into a bit of a delinquent after the truth and losing all of her old friends. But at the same time, in the Sunny route, we see her true side come out and she goes back to being the kind person she always was. The thing is, without her old friends being there for her, would she be able to turn her life around, or will she be stuck in that situation forever? Well, this is assuming Kel, Hiro, and Basil would never ever speak to each other again, and if that's the case, obviously it would be tough for Aubrey. The whole reason she ended up the way she did was because of the abandonment she felt when she lost Marie and her friends quickly afterwards. So if they never reunite and make up, Aubrey may hold these harsh feelings towards them forever, or at least a very long time. On top of this, she doesn't really have much support at home due to her mother being absent to say the least. But at the very least, she does have the hooligan support. But as we see in the game, they can do some questionable stuff. But maybe they're good therapists, I don't really know. But anyway, in short, if Aubrey never reunites with her old friends, she may end up hating them for a long time and may be alone and lack a support system. But she does have her new friends, which would indeed help her. And further down the line, she may end up forgiving her old friends despite not really knowing them much anymore. On the other end, however, we have the possibility of her reuniting with everyone else except Sunny, since he's, a Hikikomori. In this hypothetical situation, things do kind of end up a bit better for her and the gang a lot quicker, since they would make up with each other and be on good terms, and Aubrey would have her old friends back. But like Hiro and Kel, she too would, lose Sunny and have to deal with that pain of losing Sunny, especially since she knows how it feels to be alone and abandoned. But with support from her old friends and the hooligans, I think she would end up fine. In the end though, they all might just spam Sunny's phone together. Now for arguably the most complicated character in all of OMORI, Basil. We all know how much Basil cares about Sunny. They were best friends who spent a lot of time with each other until that day, the day he watched Sunny take Marie's life. Even still, after seeing this go down, he still managed to convince himself it wasn't Sunny who did it, but some abnormal force, something behind him. But Basil still carries the guilt of that day on his own with no one to support him, due to the nature of it being so secretive. He's been living with the trauma for years, even during the events of the game. During the Sunny route, this very trauma combined with his loneliness pushes him to do some very serious things, such as attack Sunny in the true route, or even take his own life in the neutral ending. So this brings us back to the Hikikomori route. Imagine a timeline where Basil never reunites with his friends and Sunny leaves him before he even gets to know he's moving away, leaving him alone with his trauma potentially forever. And as we saw in one of the neutral endings, it does not end very well for him. And as sad as it is, that's probably the most likely scenario here. We saw how his trauma tore him down before, and in even worse conditions, it would most likely happen here too. The only way he may be saved is if someone other than Sunny managed to get him to open up. We know Polly tried, but she ended up failing because Basil never actually opened up to her, which will leave his other friends to the task. The problem is they are missing that one key player, the one that saved them in the true route. Sunny, the boy he trusts the most, and the one he shares the trauma with, which does make things a bit harder for everyone else. And what we saw in the true route might give us an idea of what can happen here. In the true route, they all kind of try to talk to him, but Basil refuses to respond. This is what would be the major problem for Basil. Even if he has his friends, if he refuses to open up, things would only get harder for him, like we saw in the neutral ending. So unless someone can somehow convince Basil to open up, it's looking pretty grim for him. But if someone does manage to get Basil to open up, that leaves a whole nother problem for him, which is dealing with his friends' reactions to the truth. But with the truth out there, in the long run, it would probably help everyone more than hurt them. Perhaps with this, Basil would finally give himself another chance at living his life. Overall though, without Sunny, things turn out a lot more harsh for Basil, with him having to deal with his trauma all alone. And unless someone can get him to open up, he'll most likely end up with the same fate as the neutral ending. Or alternatively, his other friends help him and... So that pretty much covers all of the main cast in the Hikikomori route, and Sunny is, well, stuck being Hikikomori, and in the end either moves away or moves away. And hopefully moving away gives him that fresh new start his mother wanted to get him, and maybe one day he comes back and reunites with him in this hypothetical situation. So in conclusion, without Sunny in the story, things can get pretty dark for the rest of the friend group, but especially for Basil, his best friend. I guess it just goes to show how important Sunny was in helping everyone else with their trauma, and overall giving everyone else a happy ending, including himself. So yeah, Sunny's the best, and this is why I've never played the Hikikomori route.